Well, my biggest takeaway from Tuesday's meeting, it had me reflecting on, the writing the students do in the classrooms. And so for me as a teacher, I think I model it in terms of like maybe doing like a math problem. But when it comes to writing, I don't think I do a good job of modeling because I may model it on how I want them to do it in the rare or rubric form. But one of the things I don't do is give them feedback properly. So this is how a bad writing would look. And this is how a good writing will look. And I think that's one of the things I want to kind of work on, give them some samples of some good writing and some bad writing so they can kind of compare and get an idea. I think we do that when we do physics because I'll show them how to do a problem and how a good problem looks and how you correct it and all that, but I don't do it when it comes to writing. And so I think if I parallel the two, I think I might get some good results. Thank you.
My biggest takeaway from our ACE-B meeting on Tuesday was when we were looking at student responses to what they had written on Desmos, explaining their answer to a mathematical problem. And we noticed that students struggled sometimes to specify the vocabulary that they wanted to use, but the only way they can become stronger with that is if we give opportunities for them to go back and reread what they wrote. A student wrote on the other side of another side. So I think if that student had an opportunity to reread that, she would realize that she could make it sound stronger. So as teachers, we have to make sure we provide those opportunities after a discussion post. Do we let the students go back and actually reflect and maybe change their thinking?
Looking back on the student samples, I think one of the big takeaways that I have is that students struggle with finding their own wording and their syntax. They have a hard time expressing themselves in a clear way, and then I think a lot of that comes from them not going back and revising their work. So one of the things that I would suggest is having students have that ability to go back, reread, and rewrite what they said originally.
One of my biggest takeaways from the ACE-B meeting that we had was noticing that a lot of kids struggle with explaining the math concepts in words. They're used to doing them on the calculator and figuring out the solutions on paper, but to explain what they're doing in words is probably one of the biggest difficulties that I have, especially using the particular math vocabulary. I think that one of the ways that we could support them with this is maybe after they've written something, review it with them, actually have a discussion and say to them, okay, so what vocabulary word actually describes what you're trying to say here? And then that would give them an idea of how they could use it in a sentence.
Biggest takeaway from our B meeting this week, and I had a lot of takeaways that I thought I could use in my classroom. So one of my biggest was really looking at, when we looked at the kids' papers, Ms. Stewart and I really looked and noticed that we have to work with the kids on developing a proper thesis statement. Some of them really struggle with that, and we need to make sure that it actually answers the prompt and does it in a really concrete way. So they need to make sure that they're answering the prompt, that they're then addressing that prompt and staying focused throughout their body paragraphs, so that they fully support what they're trying to say. So they're finding evidence, they're using information to fully support what is in that thesis statement. And then the other thing I noticed was that we should, when we're giving a writing assignment to the kids, we should specify that they should use a formal writing style. And they may not know what we mean by a formal writing style, so I think that we need to explain what it is, such as using proper spelling, capitalization, not using slang or personal pronouns. So overall, I thought it was a really good and beneficial session, gave me lots of ideas for the classroom.
My big takeaway from our B meeting was in analyzing the students' work from a health project that they did, was that students need additional support in the writing mechanics, punctuation, capitalization, word choice, and as a department we need to find ways to allow kids to get credit for the content, but also find ways for them to edit, correct, and also grade on grammar, punctuation, and writing mechanics as well.
My takeaway when we all talked was almost all of us as career teachers, our takeaway was our kids don't know how to transition from one thought to the another, and also when they have to communicate something, then most of the time they don't communicate clearly. They beat about the bush, and don't understand what they're trying to communicate. And sometimes they know what they want to communicate, but it's difficult for them to put their thoughts together. Another thing that I realized that they don't go back and read whatever they wrote, so it's something that they're struggling with it. But all in all, I think when we went through some samples of our student work, and then we saw that as time was going on, based on what the teacher was doing, in this case, Mr. Kleinfelder, you can see that the kids are getting better in terms of what they're doing. So my takeaway is, we can move forward and the kids can do well.